Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rediscovering God. I'm here with my friend Rabbi Stuart Federow again.
Hello, hello.
First things first, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, so you don't miss a single episode that we have going on here. Today we're going to talk about a biblical figure I'm sure most people have at least heard of, by the name of Melchizedek. Melchizedek, if you're in a Christian circle, I'm sure is how you've heard it pronounced. So the most common explanation of who this figure is, according to most circles, is that he was Shem, the son of Noah, and a priest of God. We have another Devar Acher. We kind of see it a little bit differently, don't we?
Oh, yes, I do, certainly.
Okay.
And I got to tell you something. Traditional Judaism, Chazal, the wise of antiquity, may they rest in peace. They aren't going to agree with part of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Devar Acher. What I take directly from the text itself of the Bible, in this case, the Torah.
Right.
And to me, look, what's a Devar Acher? It means another way of looking at the same text.
Mm-hmm.
And in Judaism, two people can have a totally different view of the text and both be considered right if they're within the basic framework of what Judaism believes.
Mm-hmm.
So mine may not be popular, but I still think it's acceptable under all interpretations.
Right.
So
right. And one of the beautiful parts about the way you interpret this text is it knocks the claims of the book of Hebrews right out the window.
Well, and that's probably why I prefer this interpretation, because of that, because,
for sure.
And to me, it just seems obvious from the text. You just
Right.
read the text,
Right.
read what it says. And there's many people in the Christian community just assume, well, Hebrews, 7,
Right.
and then they don't read it for themselves.
Yep.
And my point is if you read it for yourselves, you may not come to the same conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Even the same conclusions as, the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean you're wrong.
Right.
It means it's the Devar Acher. So, all right. So, we should probably start out with Genesis 14.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's going on in Genesis 14? You have basically a bunch of pagan kings who get into war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them makes a big mistake because when he goes into Sodom, he steals away, he kidnaps many of the people, which includes Abraham's nephew Lot.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham's not exactly the person you really want to make angry. So Abraham, when he gets told that his nephew has been, kidnapped, taken by these kings, he gathers up his army and he goes after them. And he succeeds. He wins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the group of the people that, we're talking about? So it's Genesis 14, and it came in verse 1, and it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Ariel, king of Elasar, Chadalaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that they made war against whom? Who did they make war against? The king of Sodom, Bera, the king of Sodom, and with Birsha, the king of Gomorrah, Shinab, the king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. Okay. And they're making war against everybody. Everybody's making war against everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then in, let's see, where'd it go? Verse 12, okay, and they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, his nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods and departed. One who escaped came and told Abram, and he dwelt in the plains of Mamre, and they were all, on Abraham's side. So verse 14, when he hears that his brother was taken, he arms his people, 318, and pursues them. Goes all the way up to Dan, which is north. Okay, and then it says the following: and he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them and pursued them into Hovah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods. What goods? What goods did he bring back? Did he bring back his own goods? No, he wasn't in the battle until he chased them. All of them.
The confederations, the confederations.
Okay, right. Of the people, the kings. One group attacked another group of kings. So he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot. And also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. So then what happens? The king of Sodom, went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. Then we have verse 18, and here it gets very interesting. So you've got Abraham coming away from a battle with all of the goods owned by the kings who come out to greet him, because the other side he killed. They're dead. They're gone. So this is verse 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of El Elyon, the Most High God, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mm-hmm. Okay. So number one, first and foremost, Melchizedek is coming with stuff to give to Abraham. Verse 19. And he, still talking about the king of Salem, Melchizedek, and he, Melchizedek, blessed him, which is Abraham, and said, quote, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Mm-hmm. And blessed be the Most High God, which has delivered your enemies into your hand. And then we have the following part of the verse in verse 20. And he gave him tithes of all. Everybody seems to believe that here we have Abraham giving a tithe of all of his booty, his loot, gained from the kings that he defeated. He's giving 10% of that to Melchizedek. Right. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Okay, you've got this Abraham guy who is incredibly powerful, who is incredibly wealthy, even before he took over from the enemy kings, and he defeated those enemy kings. So all these kings that Abram's coming back to should be terrified of Abraham.
Right.
He beat their enemies. He could beat them. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to me, it makes more sense to say the following. Melchizedek comes to greet Abraham with bread and wine to give to Abraham. Melchizedek then gives a blessing to Abraham.
Yep.
Blessed be Abraham, the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, who's delivered your enemies into your hand. Now, if you take a look at verse 20, who is the subject there? The subject is Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you grammatically look at the verse, and the first he is still referring to the subject of the verse, which is still Melchizedek.
Right.
Okay. So to me, it makes sense that it is Melchizedek who is giving a tithe of what Melchizedek has left to Abram.
Okay? It works much better syntactically.
It works better in so many ways, because to me it makes no sense that Abraham defeated their enemies and all of a sudden he's expected to give them a 10% of what he got. Mm-hmm. But look at the next verses. Okay. Now it's not the king of Salem, which is Melchizedek. Now we're talking about the king of Sodom. Okay. And the king of Sodom said to Abraham, give me the people and take the goods to yourself. What's going on here? In the same way that Abraham gets to keep the booty, okay, the king is saying to Abram, okay, don't give me back my stuff. not a tithe. We're talking about a stuff, the whole thing, not just
Right.
10%. Okay, don't give me back my stuff. You keep the people. Give me back the people. Who would be the people? Well, yeah, it could be the slaves that the king of Sodom had. It could also be his family members.
Right.
Okay, give me back the people, but you can have the goods.
Mm-hmm.
So here we had the king of Sodom, telling Abraham to keep the stuff he got. And what does Abraham say to the king of Sodom? 14:22, and Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the eternal, the most high God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet,
Mm-hmm.
and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abraham rich. Once again, you've got a king defeated by the enemies that Abraham destroyed,
Right.
who is trying to give to Abraham stuff. Again, everybody seems to be giving to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What sense does it make to say that Abraham all of a sudden going to turn around and give 10% of his booty to Melchizedek?
Right.
So once again, the king of Sodom is trying to give to Abraham, and Abraham says, I'm not keeping this stuff. I'm giving it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which, by the way, if he's doing it for the king of Sodom, he probably also did it for the king of Salem, Melchizedek, and for which Melchizedek was so thrilled, he said, here, take 10%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But if Abraham had kept 100%, okay, giving back the people like the king of Sodom wanted, okay, if he kept all of it, then you have the reason why he said, no, I'm not going to keep any of it. Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto the eternal, the most high God, and possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is yours. Therefore, you would say, you, instead of God, made Abram rich.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about quantity here. We're talking about appearance here. All the reason why, okay, 10% isn't so much. Abraham was rich beforehand. Nobody could say, "Oh well, the king of Sodom, Melchizedek, king of Salem, Melchizedek, gave Abraham, 10%, and that 10% made him rich."
Right. Exactly.
But if the king of Sodom wanted him to take 100% of everything, that's a great quantity, and people could say, "Oh, he didn't get rich by the hand of God; he got rich by the hand of the king of Sodom."
Yeah. Right.
Every single thing in this, everybody's trying to give to Abraham, and Abraham rejects it. So why does it make sense all of a sudden that Abraham is turning around and giving 10% of his booty to the king of Sodom? I keep doing that. Why does it make sense he's giving it to the king of Salem? And then he's telling the king of Sodom, I'm not going to take anything at all from you. It makes no sense to interpret it, to understand it, and he gave to him tithes of everything. Okay, is Abraham giving it to Melchizedek? It only makes sense to me in every single verse here that Melchizedek is giving 10% back to Abraham as a way of saying thank you for returning all the goods that were originally stolen from the king of Salem. Just like he's doing, okay, and refuses to take anything from the king of Sodom.
Mm-hmm.
That to me makes the most sense. That to me seems to fit the verses better than all of a sudden Abraham's giving 10% to this king of Salem,
Right.
to Melchizedek. Now, on that premise, how does anything else stand up? Like Hebrews 7.
Right. Especially when it doesn't. It has no feet to stand on when the entire priestly resume of Jesus is based upon Melchizedek.
Yes, and we'll get to that. Yeah, there's more to it than that.
Right.
Okay. So if you go to Hebrews chapter 7, verse 1, okay, it's talking about the king of Salem, Melchizedek, being a priest of the Most High God. Okay, Melchizedek wasn't a Jew. Melchizedek wasn't a Hebrew. Melchizedek wasn't a descendant from Israel. Jacob's other name, he's not a descendant through any of the 12 tribes. He's a heathen. He is not, heathen may be not the best word. He is a Gentile, for lack of a better term.
Right.
He's not a Jew.
Especially since in that same chapter it refers to Abraham as a Hebrew, but it doesn't refer to anyone else as such.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take that another step. Okay. If other nations, non-Jewish nations, want to have their kings that also operate as priests, okay,
Right.
who cares? Who cares? That's their law. That's their rule.
Well, think of every. I mean, just take Egypt for example, because that's one that's in my mind right away. Their pharaoh was the king, and he was also
A god.
God upon the earth. So he had a political and a religious role in the working of their society.
Right, but long before Jesus came on the scene.
Right.
And that's an argument I don't want to get into whether he really exists. But the point is that long before there was a Jesus, according to the Christian New Testament,
right,
God had already ordained that God's priests had to be direct bloodline descendants through their own biological fathers, all the way back to Aaron, the brother of Moses.
Right.
Both of whom were from the tribe of Levi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
they were Levites.
Right. And that differed very much from the pagan practices, because you had priest kings, you had god kings.
Yeah. And who cares? That's
Mm-hmm.
not how Judaism does it.
Exactly right.
In the book of Hebrews, in the Christian's New Testament, when they want to make Melchizedek modeled at, they actually want to make Jesus modeled after Melchizedek.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make it look like Jesus was a priest and a king, just like Melchizedek was. And there's so many problems with that. Unless they want to say that Jesus was a pagan, a heathen, and
right.
he didn't have to operate under God ordained rules and regulations according to the book of Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. I don't care. They can do that if they want to. It has nothing to do with me or Judaism or the Jewish people, or God for that matter. But they want to say, Hebrews 7, for this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all. Wait, what? Again, I disagree with that. I think the text disagrees with that. But whatever. To whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace. So they're trying to make the illusion that everything about Melchizedek had to do with Jesus, who's, Prince of Peace.
Right.
I'm sorry, Prince means son of, and here they say King of Peace, and so they're mixing up son and king and prince and whatever. When they say Sar Shalom means Prince of Peace, no, it doesn't. It means ruler of peace. Okay, and the reason why they mistranslated it as son of peace, I'm sorry, start over. The reason why they are making it Prince of Peace, because a prince is the son of the king, and they want Jesus to be portrayed as the son of God.
Right.
The ultimate, the king of kings.
Exactly.
Okay, so they mistranslated on purpose. Okay, and they'll say, well, Sarah means princess. No, it doesn't. It means female ruler.
And they also refer to
our image of female ruler is princess. So that's how a lot of people, but that's not really what it means. Okay.
And they referred to Melchizedek there as the king of righteousness. Would you translate Melchizedek to king of righteousness, or would you have a little bit different of a translation for that?
No, as you point out, how would you translate it?
My king is righteous, because of the I at the end of Malki.
Malki, Melech, Malki, king, Malki, my king. Tzedek is a noun, king of righteousness, or my king is righteous, or my king is righteousness. Tzedek really is more of a noun than it's an adjective, describing a noun. My king of righteousness. Okay. but that could also be a title.
Right.
It's not necessarily, his name. Hi, Malky. Hi, Mal.
Which brings me to the next point I really want to get onto. In the book of Joshua during the Canaanite conquest.
Yes.
Chapter 10, verse 1, and it came to pass when Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, same city, heard that Joshua had taken Ai, and had completely destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so had he done to Ai and her king, and that the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel, and were among them. So there you see someone with nearly the exact same name, king over the exact same city.
Right, but how is it worded? What's the name?
Adoni-Zedek.
Right, not Melchizedek, but Adoni-Zedek.
Right.
My master of righteousness.
Mm.
All right, let's continue with Hebrews chapter 7, verse 3. I love this. This is just amazing to me. Hebrews 7:3, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abides a priest continually.
Right.
Let's back up 200 steps. You know how many people are named in the Hebrew scriptures where that person is not, they don't list a genealogy for them, a lineage for them? Okay, it mentioned a whole bunch of kings in Genesis 14. Are any of those kings given a genealogy going back to Adam? Are any of them given a genealogy 3 generations, 5 generations?
Right.
I don't remember any one of them being told, and Chadar Omer, whose father was so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, none of that. So why all of a sudden are they seeing Melchizedek, must have these divine background because they didn't list a genealogy for him, and they're not doing that for all of them? Plus, another thing to think about is, let's see, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, shouldn't they add Melchizedek? If Melchizedek is supposed to be an image of Jesus, or maybe it really was Jesus, come to earth, as priest king and, with no ancestor, whatever, then why aren't they adding Melchizedek to the Trinity and making a quaternity, something like that.
Right.
4 is quatre.
Yeah.
Quatre in the French, so whatever. Anyway, the point is that, how far do you want to take this?
Right.
Okay. Hebrews 7:4. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave the 10th of his spoils. Not how I read it. You want to read it that way? Go ahead. Not how I read it. And verily, they that are the sons of Levi, who receive the office of the priesthood, have a commandment to take tithes of the people according to the law, that is, of their brethren, though they come out of the loins of Abraham. But he whose descent is not, But he whose descent is not counted from them received tithes of Abraham, and blessed him that had the promises. They're trying to make Melchizedek look superior to Abraham.
Right.
If that's the case, why is it when Melchizedek came out to greet Abraham, one, he came to greet Abraham. He didn't wait till Abraham came to him.
Right.
Okay. 2, he's bringing him bread and wine as an offering. 3, he gives them a blessing. If you give to a person a blessing, doesn't mean you think they're better than you or you're better than them. It's something you're invoking for them that you hope comes to pass for them. If I say happy birthday to you, I'm wishing you a happy birthday. Does that mean I think I'm better than you or something?
Right.
Okay. At any rate, so everything they're saying here is predicated on 2 things. One, that Abraham gave the tithe to Melchizedek. And 2, that Melchizedek is actually a Jesus figure, if not Jesus himself. D, all the above are wrong. But he whose descent is not counted from them received tithes from Abraham, and blessed him that had the promises. Verse 7, and without all contradiction, the less is blessed of the better. The less is blessed of the better. Always? Really? Always? And here men that die receive tithes, but there he receives them, of whom it is witness that he lives. Not even sure what that means. what does that mean to you? And here men that die receive tithes, but there he receives them, of whom it is witness that he lives. Oh, it's saying that since Jesus doesn't really die, in which case nobody died on the cross, by the way. Okay. If Jesus died, okay, it's again elevating Melchizedek, who is Jesus, as above everybody else.
Right.
Okay. And as I may say so, Levi also, who receives tithes, paid tithes in Abraham. So through Abraham, Levi was a descendant of Abraham, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Levites received the tithes, and then through Abraham gave the tithe to their Jesus. Is that convoluted or not? Okay.
Right.
All right. So then it goes on from there. Does this ever end? Let's see. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek and not be called after the order of Aaron? Why was there supposed to be another priest? The priesthood given to the descendants of Aaron was eternal.
Right.
Whoever said there was going to be another priest, not a descendant of Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're bending over backwards to make it look like it's Jesus. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law.
Mm-hmm.
But the law is eternal. The law is never to be changed. Whoever said the law was supposed to be changed, except in the mind of believing Christians.
Exactly. From generation to generation.
For he of whom these things are spoken pertains to another tribe of which no man gave attendance at the altar. For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood. Wait a minute.
Regardless, the tribes hadn't even existed yet when Melchizedek was.
Very true. But we're talking about Jesus's time,
right.
And they're trying to make Jesus look like a priest, except one, he was from the tribe of Judah, not from the tribe of Levi, not from the sub-tribe of the descendants of Aaron.
Right, no priestly bloodline. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it is yet far more evident for that after the similitude of Melchizedek, there arises another priest, who was made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but after the power of an endless life. For he testifies, you are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Wait a minute. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Was that really said about Jesus? That was said about, what's that said? I think that was said about David, wasn't it? Where is that? You remember where that is? Psalm something. Can't remember off. I just had it, now I can't remember. Problem with, let's see. Wait a minute. Psalm 110. Couldn't remember. So let's go to Psalm 110. Psalms 110. Hello, 110. There you go, 110. Okay. So again, here we go. We've said this before. This is nothing new. Psalm 110 begins, okay, Le David Mizmor. Le David Mizmor. Le David. Okay, Mizmor is psalm, song, psalm. Le David can be one of three things: for David, to David, or owned by David. People forget that the lamed, the prefix le David, the prefix has different meanings.
Right.
Okay, especially when translated into English.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, prepositions are funny. Each verb has its own preposition, you know. So, Le David can be a psalm for David, in which case it doesn't mean David wrote it. It can be a psalm to David, in which case it means David didn't write it. It can be a psalm of David, in which case it means he did write it.
Right.
However, 2 out of the 3 choices, David didn't write the psalm. Then you have the statement, let's go to the English. Okay, the Eternal said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. So they're trying to say, and this has all sorts of difficulties. It could be our next show. But God said to my master is the actual translation.
Mm-hmm.
The four-letter name for God, the most intimate name for God, the name God specifies as his name forever, the four-letter, the tetragrammaton, said to Adoni, spelled out Aleph, Dalet, Vav, Nun, Yud. Okay, meaning my master, my Lord, but in the sense of Lord and ladies, not in Old England, not in the sense of any deity. So it's God said to my master. Who's his master? He just wrote this for David. It's talking about King David. Okay. Sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. The Eternal shall send the rod of your strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of your enemies. Your people shall be willing in the day of your power and the beauty of holiness. From the womb of the morning, you have the dew of your youth. The Eternal has sworn and will not repent. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. Wait a minute. What's this talking about? Why is it saying that King David is going to be a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek? What's it talking about there? Okay.
Oh, because he's establishing the capital in the house in Jerusalem where Melchizedek was the king of.
Right. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me.
So I'm on Kabad's website, and their rendition of it says you are a priest forever because of the speech of Melchizedek. Doesn't even say anything about an order. So.
Okay. Wait a minute. Give me a couple minutes.
Yeah, the Lord on your right hand has crushed kings on the day of his So just like Abraham crushed the kings and he came back and blessed him.
Right.
Exact same thing. The whole psalm is about David defeating his enemies.
Just like Abraham defeated his enemy when they became his enemy by kidnapping his nephew. Okay. Let's see. Trying to find it. I know you're somewhere. Okay. All right. All right. Again, Melchizedek wasn't even Jewish, and he was a king that lived during the times of Abraham. All right. 1418. Okay. All right. Let's see. By the way, you do remember that Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, was called a priest of Midian?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exodus 18:1.
Yep.
So, and Moses' father-in-law was considered a convert to Judaism when he says, "Now I know that your God is God." Words to that effect.
Right.
Okay.
But it doesn't make them a Levitical priest and worthy
he can't. He's not descended from yeah. So
doesn't make him worthy of temple service. He can't be a high priest. Period.
Right. All right. All right. So how in the world is the Psalm calling David, who was also not a Kohen, also not from Levi, he was a tribe of Judah, as all kings must be.
Right.
Okay. Well, first of all, the term priest isn't always a term for people from the tribe of Levi. We just proved that when we talked about Moses' father-in-law. Okay. So
and the priests of Baal and kings are also called.
Right.
Yeah.
So a person who dedicates himself to minister to a specific service can be a priest of that service. Okay. 2 Samuel 8:18. 2 Samuel chapter 8, verse 18 calls the children of David Kohanim. Okay. What does that mean? It doesn't mean they were priests. it means they were like what we would call a senator or congressman. Okay, they were leaders of the people. Okay, any leader can be called a priest of God, just like the children of David were considered. Let's see how they. I want to see. Let's see how that. Come on, where'd you go? 2 Samuel, and I think what did I just say? 8. I think it was 8. No, 8. Okay. See, it translates it as chief rulers. Okay. Uvnei David Kohanim Hayu. So the word is Kohen. It's still the same word translated as priest. Okay. But the verse is, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Keratites and the Peletites, and David's sons were chief ministers. Okay, like senators, congressmen,
right.
what's it called? City councilman or something. Okay, but the word there is Kohanim, is Kohen. So Kohanim Hayu, they were priests. So again and again and again, we see that the Bible does not always use the word priest to mean priest.
Right.
Okay. So let's.
Well, that translated it as a chief minister. And look at even in modern day, you have political offices that are minister of blank, minister of blank, minister of blank.
Right.
You know.
And remember, a minister is a leader. And King David, where was his city? What was called the city of David?
Bethlehem. Or are you talking?
No, that's where he was born. That's not
so Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, obviously. And Jerusalem is the same as Salem.
Salem, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so Melchizedek was the ruler of Salem, just like David was the ruler of Jerusalem.
Right.
Okay, so it has been twist, turn, any way they can to make Melchizedek look like, Jesus looked like Melchizedek.
Right.
But if you break it down and read the text, you see it just can't be that way.
Right.
So all the way around. Oops.
Just for one final point.
Yes.
I'd like to get back to the Adoni-Tzedek thing. I know I kind of interrupted you in the middle of your speaking.
No, that's okay. Hebrews. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, I'd like to get back on Adoni-Tzedek in Joshua 10.
Okay.
Because as you see there, like I said, he's king over the same city and has a name that's nearly identical to Melchizedek.
Right.
Which goes to show that type of name could be a dynastic title, just like Cyrus and Darius in Persia, or Ptolemy in Egypt, or so on and so forth.
Right.
And if you scroll down, if we go farther into the chapter, he leads a confederation against the Israelites and is killed. He's a pagan. He's an Amorite.
Right.
So if he was an Amorite, king over Jerusalem, with a name nearly exactly the same as Melchizedek, who's to say that Melchizedek wasn't a Canaanite?
Right. And by the way, when it says Adoni-Tzedek, okay, it's not using the four-letter name for God.
Right.
It's spelled out as Aleph, Dalet, Vav, Nun, Yud. Okay. My master of righteousness, my master of righteousness, okay, or my Lord of righteousness, but in the Lord and Lady sense of Old England, King James English, not deity. So, by the way, did we talk about the concept of El Elyon?
Not yet. Nope.
No, we need to do that before we're done.
Okay.
Because Melchizedek is called a priest of El Elyon, a priest of the Most High God.
Yeah.
Elyon is elevated. Okay, and El.
That's how he blesses Abraham.
Right. And if I have to go back to the text. Let's see. Wait a minute. Let's see. And he was priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abraham of God Most High, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be God the Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a yeah. So God Most High is a text, is a title.
A title, yep.
Okay, and it's used for Abram's God, which
right.
is not, which doesn't have to be the God that Melchizedek was priest for.
Right, because if you could read 22, but read what he says for Lord Most High in Hebrew instead of what Melchizedek said.
In verse 22 of 14, which
in verse
verse?
22, yeah, of 14, because Abram makes a distinction when he's talking to the king of Sodom.
Good point. Okay. 14:22. Vayomer Avram el Melech Sodom, and Abraham said to the king of Sodom, okay, Aramti Yadi el God, okay, raise my hand up to God, and that's the 4-letter name for God.
Right.
And then El Elyon, Kanei
Mm-hmm.
Shamayim Va'aretz, possessor of heaven and earth.
Right. But does Melchizedek ever say the Tetragrammaton in any of his blessings?
No.
So it's almost as if Abraham is now making a contradistinction of who El Elyon is to him rather than someone else.
Exactly the point. Exactly the point. And not in biblical verses, but external to the Bible, I think you have El Elyon, God Most High, as a name for pagan gods.
Mm-hmm. They even suggest that El Elyon was a higher god and birthed 70 lower gods, one of which Baal comes from.
Right.
And they even suggest that the god of the Israelites, the Tetragrammaton, was the brother of Baal. Right. So you have these external sources that are giving El Elyon his own,
his own honor, his own, right, exactly. Okay. Not that I believe that God came from a higher God, because then God isn't God anymore. Okay. But it's still, the point is that it's still found in the pagan sources, El Elyon referring to gods other than God.
Right.
So the idea that Melchizedek was a priest of God, not true.
Right. Well, think about, because I'm sure they still would have been speaking a Semitic language. It's no different than when you say God, meaning, okay, I don't want to misspeak here. It's no different than when you as a Jew say God, and we know who you mean, but, a pagan may say God. Get what I'm saying here?
Right,
it's the same words syntactically, but different meanings.
Right.
Right,
because, there's a kind of speech. Steve, I go to public things, and here in Texas, everything has to be preceded by a prayer. And sometimes the people leading the meeting, whatever it is, whatever the function is, are not that swift, think they're the only ones in the world, think the Christianity's, And so they do the prayer in the name of someone who wasn't God, for which I cannot say amen to, because that makes me an idolater.
Exactly.
Okay, so acknowledging another God besides God. So it excludes me and pushes me aside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to say. Well, what say it again? Were you responding?
I was simply saying that all these people would have been speaking.
Oh, that's my point.
Semitic language.
Right.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that there's a kind of speaking, like for a prayer, that's called equivocal language. So I am using words that you can understand your way, and I can understand my way, and somebody else can understand their way. Right. And so by saying, dear God, I know I'm speaking of my God.
Yes.
You may be speaking of your God. A Hindu can speak of his. Think the word God means his. It's equivocal.
Right.
Everybody is allowed to interpret it their own way, and nobody gets excluded. Okay. If I end a prayer in a sort of pseudo-Christian way, and I say, and this we pray in your name, the word your is equivocal.
Right.
I
It can be
understand your
interpreted
meaning
by,
God.
yeah. Yep.
Christians can understand your meaning their God, their
Mhm.
Jesus.
It's
Okay,
all based on your worldview then at that point.
and
Exactly.
therefore I'm not excluding anybody.
Yeah. Right. It's
So
inclusive language. Yeah.
El Elyon can also be equivocal language,
Right. Which
where
is
everybody.
exactly what when I read this passage, that's exactly what I see.
Right.
You know, Melchizedek says, the Most High God, El Elyon. And then
Right.
when you get to Abraham raising his hand and swearing, he says, the tetragrammaton, he makes that distinction of who
Right.
the Most High God to Abram is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also along these lines, El means power.
Right.
And
Right.
we believe that God is the ultimate power, so we will translate or understand Elohim most of the time as meaning God.
Right.
But the word
Almighty. Yeah.
Elohim, derived from the El meaning power, is also used in the Ten Commandments to refer to false gods.
Yeah.
You have no other
Yep.
Elohim before me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You also have God telling Moses, "I will make you an Elohim to
Yeah.
Pharaoh."
Right.
Yeah, but I don't
Right.
think Pharaoh's going to bow down to Moses and think he's
Exactly.
a god, but he is going to have to acknowledge Moses as a power that Pharaoh has to contend with.
Oh, and he also said, and I will make Aaron your priest. Does that mean Aaron was worshiping Moses?
Right? Yeah. Good point. Very good point. So any way you look at it, you cannot see Melchizedek
Right. I
as a
think,
Jew, as a priest of God.
right. I think
Okay.
the biggest thing that people need to learn how to do is disconnect from 2022 and think in antiquity and understand that the Bible, the language of the Bible might not be the language of 2022. You know what I mean?
And I think I would say the same thing, but about Christianity.
Right.
Judaism didn't the Bible is not about Christians.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible is all about the relationship of God and God's people, the Jewish people, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through the
Yep.
12 tribes of the sons of Jacob, and all those who converted to the religion of Abraham as it developed over thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's who
Mm-hmm.
we are,
Yeah.
a nation defined by our religion.
Right.
So the the whole Christian interpretation, Hebrews 7, Hebrews 7, uh, doesn't hold water.
Yeah. And if you do want to say that Melchizedek was a priest of the one true God and he was righteous and he was holy, regardless, within the next couple hundred years, the kings of Jerusalem, which I'm sure would be his descendants, became pagans and were killed by the Israelites.
Right,
So,
right. And if, oh no, that's Moses' father-in-law. Goes back to where he came from, presumably no different than he was. Right, I'm confusing things. Forget that. Right. All right. I think
yeah.
we have talked about every single facet we wanted to get to.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, before we cut off,
Yes.
I want you to uh wow, my brain just went.
Is there more to
Your
talk about?
books. Sorry,
Oh,
I wanted you to show your books. Yep.
you are kind. Thank you. Okay. You can go to whatjewsbelieve.org, whatjewsbelieve.org, and these are the two books, the Spanish version, okay, and the English version. So you can get it in Spanish and English. And if you have friends who are Hispanic Latino, if you have friends who are looking for a religion, if you have friends who want an explanation of why Judaism and Christianity believe radically different, opposing things,
Mm-hmm.
give them my book or
Yeah.
tell them about it. You can also go to creenciajudia.org. Besides whatjewsbelieve.org, whatjewsbelieve.org is translated into Spanish as Creencia Judia.
Nice.
CRENCIAJUDIA.org. So, okay. Thank you, Steve.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, all right. If you have nothing left to add,
Not really.
all right. next week we're off, right?
Yes, next, assuming everything goes well, I will not be able to be on.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, all righty. Well,
Yeah.
thank you as always.
My pleasure, always is.
Always a brilliant impartation of knowledge. I'm glad we can get on to these Devara Macher,
Yeah.
because I'm sure that anyone who's going to watch this has never heard that viewpoint before. And
And there are many Jews who will not, because it is a standard belief in Judaism, interpretation, I should say, in Judaism, that Abraham gave the tithe to Melchizedek. It's just, to me, the context, the syntax, the English, the grammar, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's all.
Well, all right, my friend. Until next time.
Yep.
This
See
was
you later.
Rediscovering God, and we'll see you later.